Hello and welcome to World News Tonight here on TVP World with me, Ashim Kumar. Georgia has a new president. The inauguration ceremony was short and took place to the great dismay of Georgians. Citizens once again took to the city streets in protest against the assumption of power by a pro-Russian politician. More on that in a moment, but first, tonight's headlines. A Russian missile caused the plane crash in Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan's president confirms. Elon Musk explains why he called the AfD the last glimmer of hope for Germany. How to avoid overpaying during after-Christmas sales. The inauguration ceremony of the new Georgian president lasted 28 minutes, and for the first time in history, there were no foreign officials present. The outgoing pro-Western president, Salome Zurabishvili, left the palace and called the inauguration of her successor a farce. The pro-Russian Georgian Dream Party cemented its power after elections that many consider rigged. Georgians took to the streets once again, but say the ruling party disregards public opinion. Our reporter Don Arlith is in Tbilisi, and here is his report.
It's been more than a month and the protests here in Tbilisi continue. Of course, it's been a busy day here. Earlier this morning, much to our surprise, President Zurabishvili had a speech at the presidential palace in front of hundreds of onlookers. There she made an announcement that she would be leaving that presidential palace, something that was indeed quite shocking, since she has been saying for the last couple of weeks that she would not leave. However, the Prime Minister had been threatening her with arrest, and so therefore potentially she made that decision to focus on more important matters. She still says she's the only rightful, democratically elected and legit president of Georgia. After she made that speech, she left the palace and went to attend a Sunday Mass. Meanwhile, here in the parliament, Mikhail Kavalashvili, the person selected by the Georgian Dream, was inaugurated as the next president. Of course, Bidzina Ivanishvili was in attendance, making his first public appearance here since the sanctions were imposed on him by the United States. Also earlier today, there was a small protest here in front of the Parliament building. We saw another instance of, once again, masked police, brutally cracking down on protesters. 5 people were arrested during that event, and of course some people were trampled on and or hit by police. So far tonight, the numbers that we're seeing out here are quite significantly lower than in previous nights. Whether these protests continue and what the next course of action is for the opposition remains to be seen. Reporting from Tbilisi, Don Arlith, TVP World.
With Mikhail Kavalashvili sworn in as president of Georgia and the outgoing president, Salome Zurabishvili, saying she is giving up office but remains the people's president, the Caucasian country has entered a new period of political turmoil. Tbilisi has been falling victim to Russian aggression in one form or another since at least 2008, when Moscow invaded the country. Let's take a look back at this defining time in Georgian history with Marek Steele.
A hardline critic of the West becomes president of Georgia. He is elected not by the people, but by a disputed parliament dominated by a pro-Russian ruling party known as the Georgian Dream.
The parliamentary elections that were held in October 2024 do not correspond to the standards of free and democratic elections. That's why the vast majority of the partners of Georgia, especially from the West, have not recognized the outcome.
Georgian opposition sympathizers formed a human chain in the country's capital, Tbilisi, to protest the direction the country is headed. Among them, Salome Zurabishvili, who served as president for the past 6 years and has been in conflict with the government.
6 years ago, I swore allegiance to you on the constitution, and this allegiance will not change, whether I am in the presidential palace or outside.
Russian interference in Georgian politics did not start this year. The country gained independence from the Soviet Union in 1991. But only 17 years later, it was attacked by the USSR's successor, the Russian Federation. Russian tanks rolled into Georgia, taking Abkhazia and South Ossetia regions as a result of the fighting. Just a few years after the invasion, power in Georgia was taken over by billionaire oligarch Bidzina Ivanishvili and his Georgian Dream Party. For years, it portrayed itself as pro-Western, despite the government in Tbilisi applying for EU membership as recently as 2022. Experts say the breaking point happened earlier.
It's not just recently, it's been going back now for 5 or 6 years, even from the point that it started. If we look at the Bidzina Ivanishvili, the man is worth somewhere between $5 and $8 billion, something on the order of 25% of the Georgian GDP.
Ivanishvili's business links to Russia have influenced Georgia's politics, experts seem to agree. But there's more to it than just business connections. This year, the Georgian parliament adopted 2 laws modeled on Russian legislation. One targeting NGOs funded from abroad, who now have to register as foreign agents. The other bill targeted the LGBT community by banning same-sex marriage, gender transitions, and media portrayals of LGBTQ+ people. The crackdown on the anti-government protests that followed the recent October election brought condemnation from the European Union. Then Prime Minister Kobakidze suspended Georgia's EU accession talks and accused the EU of blackmail. Today, he says his government is ready to reset relations with the European Union and the United States.
Poland is ready to increase its exports of electricity to Ukraine should Slovakia cut off power supply, according to a senior Polish official cited by Bloomberg. This information comes amid a row between Kyiv and Bratislava over natural gas supply. Ukraine decided to end the agreement, allowing for the transit of Russian gas to Slovakia through its territory. This led Slovakian Prime Minister Robert Fico to threaten cutting electricity exports to Ukraine if no way of supplying gas through this route is facilitated by Kyiv. Ukraine is suffering from power shortages as Russia has bombed a large share of its power generating and transmitting infrastructure. Russian state-owned gas company Gazprom has said it will halt all of its deliveries to Moldova starting January the 1st, 2025. Gazprom is justifying the suspension with late payments and unpaid debts by Moldova, which Chisinau strongly denies. The South European country bordering Ukraine is bracing for severe power shortages as it still partly relies on Russian gas imports. Kazimierz Wysiak reports.
2 million cubic meters of Russian natural gas flows annually to Moldova's breakaway region of Transnistria. The entire region heavily relies on that supply, but it also sells much of that energy to Moldova itself. And now it's all about to change, confirmed Moldovan Prime Minister Dorin Recean.
Gazprom announced that it will cease natural gas deliveries to Moldova's left bank as of January 1st, 2025. This is not an energy crisis, it's a deliberately induced security crisis.
Gazprom argues that Chisinau has failed to pay for the gas, which is delivered to Transnistria, then converted to electricity and sold cheaply to Moldova. The Russian company also says Moldova has to pay more than $700 million of debt, a claim which Moldovan officials have no intention of taking seriously.
Hey, it's a ridiculous argument because for 20 years they had no problem with this so-called debt, and then we ordered an international audit to see what's going on with the debt, and in reality it's non-existent.
Transnistria is a strip of land bordering Ukraine which broke off from Moldova in the 1990s after the fall of the Soviet Union. It receives the bulk of its gas from one of the Gazprom pipelines going through Ukraine. The suspension of deliveries to Transnistria comes as Ukraine announced it will no longer allow for the transit of Russian gas through the Gazprom pipelines on its territory since 2025. According to one expert, Russia is now getting desperate to exert pressure while it can.
Moscow to remind Moldova that even though that they choose direction to the Europe, they have a lot of connection here with the Russian Federation, and they have a lot of problems connected with them.
In the presidential election this November, pro-EU Maia Sandu managed to secure a slim margin re-election, despite reports of intense Russian meddling in the voting process. In July of next year, Moldovans will cast their votes in the parliamentary election, with the fate of the country's EU aspirations hanging in the balance.
Before any elections, that will be Moscow will choose any possibility to persuade people that it's safety and more comfortable. Change nothing.
But Moldova won't have to deal with energy shortages on its own. In 2023, the country stopped all of its direct Russian gas imports after connecting with the EU power grids a year prior. Romania and other EU member states already announced they will assist the country with its energy needs in a bid to counter Russian influence in the region.
Vladimir Zelensky said that over the past week, Russia had used more than 370 combat drones, 280 guided aerial bombs and 80 missiles of various types against Ukraine. Even on Christmas night, terrorists carried out a massive air attack, the Ukrainian president said. Our reporter Oz Kataji is in Kiev, and here's his report.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky reported on Sunday that Russia had launched more than 370 attack drones, more than 280 glide bombs and 80 missiles, cruise and ballistic missiles at the territory of Ukraine over the last 7 days. Now, this number is slightly down. The drone attack number is slightly down on the weekly average. President Zelensky used his address on Sunday to again condemn Russia for launching an attack on Christmas Day. The attacks using various other means are still causing a huge problem for civilians on the ground. We've had one person killed and one other person seriously injured in Kherson and Dnipropetrovsk regions. However, less drone attacks in recent weeks has also meant that larger ones are on the way. All eyes now are on Ukraine's air defense systems to see if they can deal with the barrage that's to come. It's Oz Kataji reporting from Kyiv for TVP World.
The President of Azerbaijan said the plane that crashed in Kazakhstan sustained damage due to shooting from the ground while flying over Russia. 38 people died and 29 were injured in the crash. The Azerbaijan Airlines flight took off from Baku and was due to arrive in Grozny, Chechnya, less than 2 hours later. According to reports from Russia, the city was under attack by Ukrainian drones, leading to the plane being shot at by Russian air defense systems. The plane's GPS signal was also reportedly jammed. Russian President Vladimir Putin has apologized over the downing of the commercial airliner in Russian airspace, but stopped short of taking responsibility for the incident. According to reports, he later called Baku for the second time, but the details of this conversation are not yet public. A horrific aviation disaster struck in South Korea, where a plane carrying 181 passengers veered off the runway and crashed into a wall. All but 2 passengers were killed. We would like to warn you that the following footage may be upsetting to some viewers. Gabriela Fesnak has this report.
This is the moment the wall of flames engulfed the Boeing 737-800 aircraft, leaving little more than charred debris. The plane was forced to attempt a crash landing without wheels after the control tower warned of possible bird collision. A text message from one of the passengers reads,
"A bird got stuck in the wing. Should I say my last words?"
Hundreds of emergency workers sprang into action, fighting the flames and attempting to rescue anyone who might have survived.
I think it was about 9 or 8:50 a.m. I heard a bang, went outside and saw a big dark smoke. Then I could hear a big explosion, not the one from the crash itself, and later at least 7 other explosions.
It soon became apparent, however, that the force of the impact left little hope of survival, and the rescue action turned into a recovery operation. Only 2 people, both of them crew members, were pulled alive from the back of the plane with mid to severe injuries. The aircraft, a Jeju Air flight from Bangkok, attempted to land at the Muan Airport runway shortly after 9 a.m. local time on Sunday. With landing gear failing, the aircraft veered off the runway and hit a wall. The cause of the accident is still being investigated.
The aircraft received landing clearance at 8:54 a.m. and made the first attempt at landing, but after receiving a bird collision warning, had to circle around its previous course. The landing gear appears to not have been deployed. The details need to be thoroughly investigated further.
The country's acting president, Choi Sang-mok, announced a 7-day national mourning period until the 4th of January.
An absolute tragedy there. Elon Musk has endorsed Germany's far-right AfD party ahead of the country's snap election in an article published in the German newspaper Welt am Sonntag. The publication of the opinion piece has led to the resignation of the paper's opinion editor. Franciszek Pilis has more.
Elon Musk has once again found himself at the center of a controversy. This time, however, it has little to do with his spat with MAGA supporters over US work visa policies. Earlier this month, Musk has publicly endorsed Germany's far-right AfD party in a post on his social media platform X, formerly Twitter.
Only the AfD can save Germany.
For this post, he's faced backlash from both internet users and German politicians.
Freedom of speech also applies to multi-billionaires, but freedom of speech also means that you can say things that aren't right and don't contain good political advice.
Despite this, Musk doubled down on his views in an article published in the Welt am Sonntag newspaper, calling AfD the last spark of hope for the country. He also said portraying the party as far-right comes from a mistaken assessment of its views.
The portrayal of the AfD as right-wing extremist is clearly false, considering that Alice Weidel, the party's leader, has a same-sex partner from Sri Lanka. Does that sound like Hitler to you? Please.
Following the publication of the article, Welt am Sonntag's opinion editor, Eva Marie Kogel, decided to resign in protest.
I always enjoyed heading the opinion section of Welt and Wams. Today an article by Elon Musk appeared in Welt am Sonntag. I handed in my resignation yesterday after it went to print.
Elon Musk argues that his, quote, significant investments in Germany, including a massive Tesla factory near Berlin, which employs around 12,000 people, give him the right to speak publicly on German politics. Experts argue that Musk's backing of populist right politicians in Europe, such as Italy's Giorgia Meloni and the UK's Nigel Farage, could significantly impact European politics, compounded by anti-Islam rhetoric spread on his social media platform X.
If you look at the example of the suspect in Magdeburg, he has also been very active in this international debate, which is taking place in this extreme right-wing filter bubble with Elon Musk, AfD, German influencers. That has been a huge topic in the last few weeks, and Elon Musk is now speaking about the Party of Truth here in Germany and so on.
With Germany's snap elections happening in around 2 months, Musk's continuous backing of AfD could significantly influence which way the vote goes.
Stores worldwide are experiencing a surge in post-Christmas sales. Shoppers are flocking to stores, clearing shelves as they prepare for the new season or even stock up on gifts for the year ahead. Anastasia Yanchenko has more.
50, even up to 70% off. Stores are luring customers with fantastic offers, and shoppers, enchanted by the idea of saving big, are sweeping up everything in their path.
Yesterday I was in the store. I spent 10 minutes stuck in traffic. There's really a huge rush. Everyone wants to grab something while they can.
It's been a long-waited day for many shopaholic. For many, the Christmas holidays are just a pit stop on the way to New Year's sales.
Because people want to buy their dreams and wants for less. It's a really great opportunity that after the holidays you can still buy something cheaper.
According to psychologists, such excitement is fueled not only by low prices, but also by what they have come to call hunter syndrome.
The thrill is what animates us. We're a resourceful species and still have that hunter streak within us. So, when we pay just half the price for something, that gives us a sense of snatching up something valuable.
These sales and clearance offers are designed to attract customers. They also help to boost the post-holiday slump in revenues and allow stores to clear out old stock ahead of the new season.
This is an excuse for retailers to get rid of excess inventory because holding onto stock simply isn't profitable. What's fashionable now will definitely not be in as little as 2 months' time.
Clothing, shoes, electronics and household appliances are among the most sought-after products.
When the sales hit, I'm buying clothes, accessories, phone gadgets and shoes. Things I'd like to add to my wardrobe before the new season.
The word sale can really drive our spending decisions, even though our wallets are, for the most part, already strained after Christmas purchases. According to a survey by polling house Ibris, the average Polish family spent around 370 euros for this year's Christmas shopping. That's 8% more than last year.
Now, as we've already said, Georgian President Salome Zurabishvili has left the Orebliani Palace and the presidential seat after a hardline critic of the West was sworn in as her successor amid widespread public protests. The nation has been mired in political turmoil since October's disputed parliamentary elections and the ruling pro-Russian Georgian Dream Party's controversial decision in late November to suspend Tbilisi's EU accession talks. Where does this leave the country and its people? Well, to explore these and related questions, I'm joined by Rusif Husseinov, Director, Tobshubashov Center. Mr. Husseinov, welcome to TVP World and thank you for taking the time.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Good evening. It's a pleasure. So, the existing president, or the current president, until a few hours ago, has left the palace, but she said in one of her speeches, she said, I take the legitimacy with me. And she says that Kavelishvili's inauguration was a parody. She then joined the protesters, all very powerful symbolically and brave. But is it going to make a difference?
The transition of power in Georgia in terms of presidency went more or less smoothly, without any violence, and less dramatic than expected, because as you rightly mentioned, now ex-president Salome Zurabishvili warned she wouldn't step down, but after the Georgian Dream government warned that she might be removed from office with the use of force, she decided to simply quit the presidential palace. However, as we all expect, she would be very active in the Georgian politics and loyal to the Georgian cause. And let me tell you this: despite the fact that president is a figurehead without any real power under the current Georgian constitution, Zurabishvili became one of the symbols of the ongoing protests in Georgia and gave us some iconic photos and video footages when she, just imagine this picture, when she, as president, went on the street and joined the protests against the government. Right now, she is more welcome in the Western capitals, which does not accept the legitimacy of the current Georgian parliament and president. And we can expect her also in Washington, D.C. in mid-January during Donald Trump's inauguration.
Understood, Mr. Sedov. We are where we are now, in Georgia. The question really is that despite the public protest, despite the ex-president emerging as a leader for these protests, what is it that they can do to change the situation?
The political crisis in Georgia has indeed reached a stalemate or standoff, if you want. And right now, neither the authorities nor the protesters have any exit strategy out of this situation. We don't see it. The government, despite the public unrest, and despite the Western sanctions and heavy reactions, does not back off. The protests will also probably continue for some time by paralyzing the Georgian capital and the whole political life. And right now, the standoff simply furthers the polarization, the depolarization within the Georgian society.
Understood. So if we're not going to see change from within Georgia, is there something that, for example, the European Union and or the United States can do to put some energy and effort into bringing the people's will to fruition?
Well, in fact, both the EU as an institution and in individual member states, as well as the United States, have already done a lot by denouncing the ruling party, by introducing several sanctions, as personalized sanctions. But the real changes, and everyone in the West and around the world is expecting that the real changes should come from within. And right now, as I said earlier, the authorities, they also seem very strong. I don't see any cracks inside the government right now. But again, these sort of standoff might lead to very grave results in the coming weeks if the parties do not sit down and do not negotiate any exit strategy out of this situation.
Well, we certainly hope that there are no grave outcomes in the coming weeks. You know, we always look for a peaceful transition. Now, the Prime Minister has said that he is willing to restart conversations with the European Union regarding accession. What do you make of that statement?
Even the Georgian government wants to resume the process. They have already lost their credibility and their legitimacy in the eyes of the Western countries. And I don't think that the Western capitals will accept the Georgian leaders as interlocutors anymore until the government changes in Tbilisi. Therefore, despite this statement, I don't expect any drastic changes between the Georgia and West relations.
Understood. Well, let's see how that all turns out. Mr. Huseynov, thank you very much for sharing your insights with our audience. Have a good evening, sir, and a Happy New Year.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And that's all from us in this bulletin of World News. Don't go away, though. Lots more coming up. Goodbye for now.